There comes a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when you realize that all your striving, all your worry, all your trying, has done nothing but exhaust you. That moment is not failure. It's awakening. We spend so much of our lives clenching our minds around plans, our hearts around people, our egos around outcomes. We retaught that the more we care, the more we grip, the more likely we are to succeed. But what if that's not true? What if your control is the very thing keeping you from peace? What if the moment you stop caring so much is the moment everything finally begins to work? This isn't about giving up. This is about letting go. Letting go of the fear that you'll miss out if you're not always ahead. Letting go of the pressure to be someone you're not. Letting go of the illusion that your value is measured by how much you produce, impress, or please. Carl Jung once said, "We must be able to let go of the life we have planned, so as to accept the life that is waiting for us." But how can we do that when everything around us tells us to care more, push harder, stress longer? Because the truth is, you can't fix life by tightening your grip on it. That's the paradox of detachment. The less you force, the more flows. The less you try to control people, the more genuine your relationships become. The less you obsess over success, the more aligned your purpose feels. The less you fear failure, the freer you are to create something truly worthwhile. But none of this is possible while you're still afraid of releasing control. Stress with ambition, attachment with love. And it's killing us. Think about it. How many times have you spiraled over things completely out of your hands? How often have you replayed a conversation, obsessed over what someone thinks, or tortured yourself trying to be enough for someone else's standards? And when did any of that make you feel whole? When did it give you real peace? Michel de Montaigne wrote, "The soul that does not have a fixed goal disperses, for being everywhere is to be nowhere." That quote lives in your bones, doesn't it? Because you know what it feels like to be everywhere. For everyone. And yet, to feel like you belong nowhere. You know what it means to carry weight that was never yours? To care to the point of self-erasure. To break your back trying to hold together things that were never meant to be whole. But you're allowed to stop. You are allowed to stop caring about things that steal your soul. You are allowed to walk away from pressure masquerading as passion. You are allowed to release the roles, the masks, the noise, and return to the essence of who you are. Because when you stop caring about how you appear, you begin to see who you really are. When you stop caring about doing what's expected, you begin to live what's authentic. When you stop caring about how you're perceived, you begin to connect to your own truth. And that is the beginning of true freedom. It's not about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about reclaiming your energy from the things that don't deserve it. It's about shifting from hyper-attachment to quiet sovereignty. You don't need to be in control to be powerful. You don't need to win to be worthy. You don't need to chase to be chosen. All you need is to return. To come back to the stillness beneath the chaos. To remember the part of you that was never broken, never behind, never too late. That part of you still exists. And it's waiting patiently for you to stop running long enough to listen. Let this be the moment you do. Letting go isn't the same as not feeling. In fact, the deepest form of detachment only happens when we fully felt everything we were afraid to face. You have to feel the fear of being left out, to realize it never defined your belonging. You have to feel the ache of being misunderstood, to understand that your truth is still intact. You have to feel the silence after you stop overgiving, and discover that your worth never depended on their applause. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating the unconscious parts of ourselves. But here, that's what most people miss. Individuation is not about adding more layers to impress the world. It's about shedding everything that's not you. It's about no longer caring whether people understand your journey. Because you finally do. You realize that not everyone is meant to stay. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every door needs to open. Some are locked for your protection. But you only begin to see that when you stop begging for things not meant for you. That's when life starts to rearrange itself. That's when the chaos outside begins to match the clarity you're cultivating within. You stop trying to prove yourself. You stop shrinking to fit in. You stop explaining your softness, your silence, your slowness. You stop carrying guilt for being someone who feels deeply. And that is a revolution, because in a world obsessed with speed, loudness, and image, stillness is power. Depth is rebellion. Truth is magnetic. There is a quiet force in you that has never stopped waiting for your return. It doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It whispers in the space between breakdown and breakthrough. And every time you detach from the noise, it gets louder. You begin to notice beauty again, in small things, in quiet mornings, in being present instead of being perfect. You begin to realize that caring less about what drains you frees up your soul to care more about what fills you. You begin to trust, not blindly but wisely. You don't need guarantees. You need alignment. You don't need outcomes. You need integrity. And so, the act of not caring becomes an act of coming home. You care less about external validation and more about internal peace. You care less about being right and more about being real. You care less about attention and more about connection. Michel de Montaigne knew this truth when he said, "He who establishes his argument by noise and command shows that his reason is weak." Real power doesn't shout, it simply is. And you, at your most detached, are also at your most rooted. Because now, you're not reacting out of fear. You're responding from clarity. You're not addicted to being needed. You're devoted to being true. This is the shift. You begin to see people differently. You stop chasing people to love you and start noticing who already does. You stop trying to fix others and start healing yourself. You stop running from discomfort and start learning from it. And in that shift, something beautiful happens. You become magnetic. Not because you're trying, but because you're whole. You don't need to perform. You don't need to hustle for belonging. Your presence, without attachment, becomes your greatest influence. And suddenly, the things you once forced begin to flow. The people who see you, really see you, start showing up. The opportunities that align with your truth begin to unfold. And the noise that once owned your mind begins to fade. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped resisting its flow. You stopped over-identifying with pain. You stopped tying your worth to outcomes. You stopped handing over your peace to everything outside you. And you came back to yourself. So maybe the question isn't, how do I get more? How do I make people love me? How do I fix everything around me? Maybe the real question is, who am I without all this noise? What would my life look like if I simply let go? The answer might scare you. Because for the first time, you're not running. You're not clinging. You're not trying to force meaning where there is none. You are simply ... here with yourself. And that's enough. You don't need to keep sacrificing your peace for the illusion of control. You, Dante, need to keep proving your worth to people who can even see themselves. You don't need to burn out just to feel valuable. You were never supposed to carry so much. You were never meant to be perfect to be loved. Never meant to be productive to be enough. Never meant to be everything to everyone. You were meant to be whole, to be aware, to be real. Carl Jung reminds us that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But we cannot become that version of ourselves if we were too busy holding on to who the world told us we should be. And now, now you have felt what it has like to let go of the weight that wasn't yours, to stop clinging to outcomes, to stop negotiating your worth. You've felt the power of detachment, not as numbness, but as clarity. And if this video found you today, maybe it's because your soul was ready. Maybe this is the beginning of something quieter, but deeper. Something slower, but stronger. A new chapter where you stop caring about how the story looks to others. And finally, live the one that feels true to you. If this message reached a place inside you that words usually don't, if you felt seen, validated, or even challenged, then let this be your moment. Subscribe for weekly content that doesn't just inspire. It transforms. We go deep here. Into emotions, shadows, truth, and the power of detachment. Comment below. Detachment gave me my peace back. Let's fill this space with voices ready to live lighter, freer, more grounded. We rebuilding a quiet movement of people who are tired of chasing what it doesn't matter and finally choosing what does. And you, exactly as you are, belong here. We'll see you in the next video.